You would think by now the Cleveland Browns would have learned their lesson. You would think that after decades of being roasted as the place where quarterbacks go to die, they'd finally stop feeding their rookies into the wood chipper. But nope. Once again, Cleveland has done what Cleveland does best: take a quarterback with potential, excitement, and a chance to prove himself and throw him under the bus before the engine even starts. And this time, it isn't some anonymous late-round pick nobody cared about. This time it's Shedeur Sanders, son of Dion, college football star, swagger-filled rookie, and supposedly one of the most interesting names in the Browns' preseason storylines. And the way they treated him? Fans aren't calling it a bad night, they're calling it sabotage, that's right. Sabotage. That's the word echoing across sports talk shows, forums, and social media right now. This wasn't rookie jitters. This wasn't a learning curve. This was Cleveland tossing Shedeur into a pit full of wolves, tying his shoelaces together, and then blaming him for not outrunning the pack. And the kicker? Even Skip Bayless, who usually saves his nuclear takes for LeBron James, decided this time he wasn't just going to criticize the Browns. He straight up accused them of setting up Dion's son to fail. And if you think that's just Skip running his mouth again, let's actually lay out what happened. Imagine this. You're Shedeur Sanders. You've been hyped since you were in college. You've got your dad, one of the greatest athletes ever, in your corner. Fans are buzzing. The media is watching. And finally, you get your shot. Preseason snaps, real NFL field, real chance to show you belong. Except when you jog out there, you realize the deck isn't stacked against you. The deck has been set on fire and thrown in the river. No starting linemen, no reliable receivers, no chemistry, no rhythm, just you, a paper-thin pocket, and a defense that smelled blood. The result? Shedeur was sacked 5 times in just a handful of drives. Not because he was panicking, not because he was lost, but because before he could even look up, the Rams defenders were already in his face. It wasn't football. It was a mugging. And yet, despite being thrown into a scenario that would rattle most veterans, Shedeur stayed calm. No tantrums. No finger-pointing. No sideline meltdowns. He kept getting up, brushing off the turf, walking back to the huddle like a soldier refusing to break. But here's the thing. That composure only made the whole setup look even more suspicious. Because if this wasn't sabotage, if this wasn't politics, then what was it? Why would you put your rookie quarterback in that kind of no-win situation and then pull him out right when the game was on the line? See, that's where the conspiracy starts to look less like a conspiracy and more like reality. Because when the Browns had the ball late in the 4th quarter, a 2-minute drill, the kind of moment quarterbacks dream about, Shedeur thought he was going in.
Right?
Cameras caught him pedaling on the sideline bike, locked in, powering up. He thought it was his time. Then Kevin Stefanski, the head coach, walked over and told him no. Sit down. Tyler Huntley was going in instead. And that decision, that wasn't just a coaching call. That was a message. A very public, very deliberate message. Skip Bayless called it what it was: humiliation. He said it flat out. The Browns didn't just bench Shedeur. They wanted to bury him. They wanted to make sure he didn't have a chance to shine, didn't have a chance to steal a headline, didn't have a chance to put more heat on Stefanski or pressure on the veterans Cleveland already invested in. And when you look at the Browns' quarterback room, it all makes sense. Deshaun Watson locked in with $230 million guaranteed. Joe Flacco clinging to a veteran role because he's safe and predictable. Tyler Huntley cheap, mobile, dependable. Kenny Pickett, a reclamation project. Dylan Gabriel drafted 50 picks ahead of Shedeur, the real investment. That's 5 guys ahead of him before he even laces his cleats. You think the Browns really wanted Shedeur to come out and light it up? No. They wanted him quiet, disposable, practice squad material. And here's where the fans come in. Because while the coaches might think they can bury a story, the fans aren't stupid. They saw the lack of protection. They saw the predictable play calls. They saw how other rookie quarterbacks across the league were given tools to succeed, first-team reps, schemes tailored to their strengths, a chance to make real plays, while Shedeur was sent out there with the scraps. They saw him yanked when the lights were brightest. And the conclusion fans came to wasn't that Shedeur Sanders can't play. It's that Cleveland never wanted him to. And then there's Shedeur himself. Let me tell you, this kid showed more leadership in his post-game interview than half the Browns veterans have in their entire careers. When asked about the sacks, about the lack of support, about being benched, he didn't lash out. He didn't throw anyone under the bus. He said, "I put in the work. I do everything the best I can. That's all I ask for." He even took responsibility for some of the sacks, saying he'd watch the tape and learn. When asked about being pulled for Huntley, he smiled and said he was happy for him, that Huntley handled business. That's not just class, that's character. That's maturity beyond his years. And the irony? By staying calm, by showing composure, by refusing to create headlines, Shedeur exposed the Browns' agenda without saying a single word. But let's talk about the politics here, because that's the part nobody wants to admit. This isn't just football. This is optics. The Browns drafted Dillon Gabriel way higher than Shedeur. That's their golden child. That's the guy they'll protect. Shedeur? He was a shiny name. Dion's son. A PR move. A way for the owner to sell jerseys and get attention. And now, when he shows flashes of real potential, when fans start asking questions, suddenly it feels like the coaching staff's goal isn't to develop him, but to silence him. Because if Shedeur were to outplay Gabriel, or outshine Huntley, or God forbid look better than Flacco in a clutch moment, what does that say about Stefanski's plan? What does that say about the Browns' decision-making? It creates chaos in a locker room already drowning in quarterback politics, and so instead, they bury him. They bench him in the fourth quarter. They feed him to the Rams' pass rush with no protection. They let the local media rip him apart. They let fans debate if he even belongs in the league. They create a narrative of failure, all while Shedeur keeps his head high and refuses to break. And this is where the story shifts from Cleveland's mess to Shedeur's future. Because here's the truth. Cleveland probably isn't going to carry 6 quarterbacks. Someone has to go. And if Shedeur is cut, he'll land on waivers. And if he lands on waivers, other teams can swoop in. And you better believe there are teams out there watching, quietly, waiting. Teams that didn't draft a quarterback. Teams dealing with injuries. Teams with shaky depth charts. Teams that would love to take a kid with poise, mobility, leadership, and a chip on his shoulder and give him a real chance. All it takes is one. One GM who sees what Cleveland didn't. One offensive coordinator who believes. One organization willing to invest in the future instead of protecting the past. That's why this story matters. Because what happened to Shedeur Sanders wasn't just about one bad preseason game. It was about how politics can crush talent before it ever has a chance to breathe. It was about how franchises like Cleveland destroy potential not because players can't play, but because the system won't let them. And it was about how one rookie, despite being set up to fail, carried himself with more grace and maturity than the people running the show. So here's the big question. Is this the end of Shedeur's story in Cleveland, or the beginning of something bigger somewhere else? Because if you ask Skip Bayless, he'll tell you straight, free Shedeur. Get him out of Cleveland before they erase him like they've erased so many quarterbacks before. And if you ask fans, many of them agree. Cleveland didn't just bench him. They tried to break him. But the thing about talent, about real unteachable leadership, about swagger in your DNA, it can't be buried forever. You can stash him on the depth chart. You can yank him in the fourth quarter. You can feed him to a defense with no protection. But eventually, talent finds its way out. And when it does, the same people who laughed at him, mocked him, and doubted him will be the ones watching from the sidelines as he shines somewhere else. Maybe this isn't a story about sabotage after all. Maybe this is the turning point. The exact kind of adversity that fuels legends. And if Shedeur Sanders does land somewhere else and lights it up, then the Browns won't just have sabotaged a rookie. They'll have sabotaged themselves. Now the question is, do you think Cleveland set him up to fail? Or was this just another messy preseason in the NFL's most cursed quarterback factory?